I'm going to have to call our guy Big Lou. I'm going to need help with diabetes and high blood pressure and everything else if I keep watching the Chiefs every single week. My goodness, they're going to kill us. Not even slowly. This job is not going to kill me, waking up this early and prepping for the show every day. The Chiefs are going to kill me, Mark. My goodness.
Yeah, that's a little crazy. I mean, the Raiders, they're 12.5-point favorites to open up over the Raiders. I'm taking the Raiders.
Oh, I would take the Raiders in a heartbeat on Black Friday. 12.5-point dogs here in Arrowhead. Mm-hmm. It's going to be listen, by Arrowhead standards, it might be a little bit of a sleepy crowd. I hope not, but I could see that coming out a little soft. And listen, how much more evidence do you need here? Buccaneers overtime, Broncos using a blocked field goal to win the game. Panthers yesterday, walk-off field goal. Yesterday, I took Claire to a birthday party, and the birthday party ran from 2 to 4. So we left for the birthday party right around halftime, give or take. And the game was on, so I'm monitoring and just checking it out. But you never want to be rude, obviously. You want to be, engaging. And obviously there were people there that I was happy to talk to and spend time with. But you want to keep an eye on the game, right? So at 27, or I guess it was, 27-16, Chiefs are up, second half. And I kind of tuned out. I was like, okay, all right, things are looking good. Wasn't the prettiest game ever, but they're going to win. And then I got talking to some folks, and I'm hearing from one guy about his goats and, giving birth to goats and things like that. It was actually really fascinating. I hadn't really talked to somebody who would birth goats before, but here I was. And then all of a sudden someone's like, it's a tie game. What do you mean? It was 27-16. No wonder my phone was buzzing, and I wasn't really focused on it because I was watching Claire and making sure the party was going well and talking to different folks that I hadn't met before and talking with people that I had known, and it was all good. And then all of a sudden I look up and, it's a tie game. So needless to say, I didn't see that coming. I'm sure nobody did. And the first thing I thought about was, I hope John's doing okay in his recliner at home. I was getting nervous for you there, John.
No, I expected this. They've been a little feeble for the last month at least.
Well, I like to pretend I'm a fly on John's wall to see how he's reacting in the moment, whether he's, getting all worked up and bent out of shape and slamming things, or are you kind of calm, cool, and collected in these cases?
Oh, no, this is the first time I hurled something at the TV.
Oh, he hurled something at the TV. I love it.
Mahomes is killing me. The emperor has no clothes, folks.
Oh, he's hurling it at the TV.
Luckily, it's one of those travel pillows you put around your neck. I was laying there and just one of those real soft ones.
Yeah. Mark, how much would you pay to have seen John throw something at his TV yesterday afternoon? That would have been absolute gold.
That would have been fun.
Oh, man. We'll have to see it at some point. We got to get the wife to record. One of those recordings where the spouse doesn't know the other one's recording it. That's what we've got to get from the Anthony household.
My recordings of her would be priceless.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
Adamant about it as I am.
All right. Very nice. Very nice. I like the sound of that. Boy, that's a feisty house right there.
That's how we stay married. Hasn't been appreciated by previous partners.
Oh, man. So they get that win. They're 10-1. But my goodness, could you have a more stressful 10-1 season than what the Kansas City Chiefs are going through right now? So
I'm thinking it's me that I'm just getting too critical.
No, man. How could you? Look at the scores of these games. Look how they're winning these games. Overtime, blocked field goals, and, walk-off field goals here in Carolina against the 3-8 Panthers. My goodness.
And the sad thing was they didn't even punt till like 6 minutes left in the game.
I know.
So they were doing all right. They just can't score in the red zone early in the game. They need to get that fixed before the playoffs.
They do. Now, needless to say, Mark, you did not win your parlay yesterday. That's why you're here?
Yeah.
Okay. Just checking.
Not really close either.
Not really close. All right. Well, you keep trying, my man. Friday's a new game, new week.
Gonna have to go in on Noah Gray this coming week, right?
That's right, Mark. Where's Noah Gray been in your parlays? Come on, man.
Back-to-back 2-touchdown weeks. Crazy.
Let's go. Gosh, he's making himself some nice coin here this season. Yesterday I'm at the birthday party, and the Chiefs end up, of course, winning in walk-off fashion. And thank goodness they got that win, because if not, it would have been a gloomy start to really a great week. Thanksgiving week is one of my favorite weeks of the year. Short week, obviously, for many of us. If nothing else, you've got hopefully Thursday off. And you also are extra thankful for, I think, what's gone on in this country over the last 3 weeks. And it's not just you. It's not just me. The first polling we've seen on how Donald Trump is doing with his transition, and I mean the transition of his administration, because, that can mean many things these days.
Yeah, never know.
Yeah, you ain't kidding. Has been received very positively by the American public. A new CBS News poll that dropped yesterday was very, very positive when it came to the job Donald Trump has done thus far on his transition into the White House coming up in January. 59%, that's right, 59% of the American people approve of Donald Trump's presidential transition. 41% disapprove. Donald Trump has never been in a position, going back to his first term in office, where anything he did had approval ratings of about 60%. That did not exist. Yet you wonder why, like MSNBC has seen a 40% decline in ratings since election night, comparing pre-election coverage to where they are over the last couple of weeks. It's that the American people are done buying their nonsense. They're done buying the BS that they were selling. And you're seeing now a large majority of people across the ideological spectrum be welcomed into this Donald Trump cabinet, right? You're seeing the first female chief of staff, which had not been done before, believe it or not. You're seeing people who are straight, people who are gay, people who are former Democrats, people who are lifelong Republicans, conservatives, people who used to call themselves classical liberals, who are part of Donald Trump's, or going to be part of Donald Trump's administration. And that's why, every pick, I'm not going to go pick by pick and say, I like this one, I don't like this one. I mean, some of the big ones that are out there and which ones were more controversial than others. I think Trump had a big upgrade last week from Matt Gaetz to Pam Bondi. But it's more about the fact that I don't need to like every single pick. I didn't expect when I voted for Donald Trump for a third time to like every single cabinet pick. I don't think it really matters. What matters is that he has put together a team largely of outsiders, largely of people who are in lockstep with his vision for America. Compare that to 8 years ago when he was interviewing guys like Rex Tillerson and Mitt Romney for positions, because he really didn't know what he was doing. I mean, he had a great message, he had a great movement, but when it came to the ins and outs of Washington, D.C., he really didn't know what he was doing. Now he does. And that's why one of the first things that we talked about after Donald Trump won, and this came to me probably the Friday after the election, so 3 days after, I thought for Donald Trump's legacy and also for his ability to get as much change as possible in Washington, D.C., it might have taken him winning in 16, losing in 20, and then winning in 24 to really make the most amount of change. Had he won in 20, he would have been stuck with a lot of the same people. And he would have been a lame duck, and people would have been sick and tired of Trump. There's a new enthusiasm. There's a new energy around Trump, his team, his supporters that would not have existed over the last 4 years. And that's why this may be the deep state, the bureaucracy, whatever you want to call them. This may actually be their worst nightmare. Donald Trump getting a second term, but getting it in the manner that he's gotten it, is what is going to send a lot of chills down the spine of folks in Washington, D.C., who thought they were safe, who thought they had their cushy gigs forever, who thought they could do no wrong. Well, their days, and of course I mean this figuratively, might be numbered. 913-408-7957. And one of our own, one of Missouri's own, was talking about it yesterday on one of the legacy media Sunday shows. Yep, went down that road. We'll share with you who that was, what he had to say, and how he kind of stunned the moderator in this moment as well. Plus, we got to do a Rosie O'Donnell check-in at some point this hour. Maybe that could be a sponsored segment. I don't know who would do it. I got some ideas.
Guy's nuts. Our little squirrel friends.
Yes. She does have, she's talking to squirrels in her video again. So at some point, we'll get to that this hour as we kick it off on a Thanksgiving week, Monday morning on KCMO 95.7 FM. 620, kicking off Thanksgiving week with you on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM. Boy, do we have a lot to be thankful for this year. Hopefully locally in your personal lives. And also, I believe, as a country, based on what happened 20 days ago today. Now, yesterday, you had all the Sunday shows doing their kind of greatest, latest hits before the big holiday. And one of our own, Eric Schmidt, Missouri U.S. Senator Eric Schmidt, found himself on Meet the Press with Kristen Welker. And this has been a talking point since Pam Bondi became the Attorney General became the appointed Attorney General late last week. Well, is she going to go after the so-called enemies that are out there for Donald Trump? Is she going to keep the DOJ nonpartisan? If you think the DOJ has been nonpartisan, I will laugh in your face. I mean, I will. I will laugh right in your face, Hillary Clinton style, and you will have no choice but to accept it. The DOJ, as we well know now, for the last 8 years, but going on much longer than that, is not a nonpartisan operation. And it's not necessarily the people there's a lot of people at the top, and it's not really the people who are employed by the DOJ, like the regular run-of-the-mill people. It's these people in relatively high positions who are never appointed, who are lifers, who are part of this whole deep swamp that Donald Trump has talked about for far too long. So here was Eric Schmidt yesterday on Meet the Press.
Attorney General Bondi has vowed to, quote, investigate the investigators, to prosecute the prosecutors. A different tone than you have struck, Senator. You've said that the DOJ should be, quote, going back to fighting crime and not settling political scores. How do you square those two different views?
Well, I will tell you that Pam Bondi has a track record. She's a very serious person. And I think she's seen the weaponization. Everybody's seen this weaponization of the Justice Department over the last 4 years. It really is a tragedy for a once respected agency that has gone after Catholics. It's gone after parents who showed up to school board meetings under the auspices of the Patriot Act. This is in the United States of America. And then clearly weaponized that department, Joe Biden did, and Merrick Garland, to go after their chief political opponent. And I'll tell you, Chris, the arc of that story is really terrifying if you care about the Republic. After the midterms, Joe Biden said that there was no way President Trump would ever be back in the White House. After that speech, these zombie cases were resurrected. The number 3 person from DOJ went to New York, and you had the Alvin Bragg case. The number 2 prosecutor in Atlanta went to the White House and coordinated. You saw all these cases resurrected. They all fell apart under the weight of the law. And so I do think there needs to be accountability. I think that getting it back to crime fighting is important, but there has to be accountability for these kinds of abuses.
Okay, what specifically does accountability look like, Senator? Are you suggesting you want to see Special Counsel Jack Smith, Attorney General Merrick Garland prosecuted? Is that what you are implying?
Well, no, I think accountability means first and foremost, the people involved in this should be fired immediately. And anybody part of this, this effort to keep President Trump off the ballot and to throw him in jail for the rest of his life because they didn't like his politics and to continue to cast him as a quote-unquote threat to democracy was wrong. And so we'll see where that goes. But I just don't think in this country, unless we want to be a banana republic, I don't want to see that happen. You can't have the Justice Department abused in this way. Pam Bondi is a smart, capable, tough person who I think is going to restore respect in that department.
So she has your vote, Senator?
Oh, absolutely. I intend to help Pam Bondi get the votes. I know her well. She's a friend. I've come to respect Pam Bondi. She was a great attorney general in Florida. This is a home run by President Trump.
Yeah, that was Eric Schmidt, Missouri U.S. Senator, yesterday on Meet the Press. And that is the perfect response. That's exactly what every Republican U.S. Senator should be saying about Pam Bondi and the DOJ, not directly targeting specific people, but the place needs to be cleaned up. That is just undeniable. If you've paid attention to the news and haven't been in a coma since 2015, and you're not a total partisan hack on the left side, you've got to admit the place has to be cleaned up, and I trust her a lot more than I would have trusted Matt Gaetz, who I see is now recording cameos. I'll tell you about that coming up this morning here on KCMO. Randy's in Napoleon. What's up, Randy? You're on KCMO Talk Radio.
Hey, I just want to say the movie needs to be redone of Happy Gilmore and make it Happy Trumpmore. Somebody learned how to putt.
That's right. I love that. That's outstanding. Nice job, Randy.
Well, guess who Shooter McGavin is? That would be Obama. I eat pieces of crap like you for breakfast. And Trump goes, you eat pieces of crap for breakfast? So there you go.
Oh, that's great. Have a great Thanksgiving. I love that, Randy. That's outstanding, my man. That is great. Little Happy Gilmore reference before 6:30 on a Monday of a holiday week. Boy, Randy had his coffee today. John's at Independence. What's up, John?
Hey, Pete. Hey, I was just wanting to add to your observation about Trump losing in 2020 might have been a blessing in disguise. I think, by the Democrats winning that, they thought they had some kind of mandate maybe, and they just took things extreme to the left. And that allowed guys like Musk and Rogan and even Bill Maher to see just how extreme the left was. And it turned them, Musk was no fan of Trump, even up to about a year ago. But he began, to see just how extreme the left was, and it turned them toward Trump. And I think it turned a lot of people toward Trump. It just really, took the mask off the left. It allowed them to run, they just, thought they had this big mandate for change, and, the people said no 20 days ago.
You're absolutely right, John. I will add to that and say there's a funny meme going around that has Barack Obama early in his first term, walking around with Elon Musk. And the caption I've seen is the one that got away. And it's true, because whether it's Elon Musk, whether it's, look at a lot of the Democrats who are now like Donald Trump supporters in his inner circle. Tulsi Gabbard, RFK Jr. I don't love all these people's policy positions on a lot of things, but it is a pretty diverse group of thinkers when you stack them all together, from Elon to Tulsi to RFK. And while I think they're better on different things than they are on certain other things, all in all, it is undoubtedly a unique big tent movement that Donald Trump has put together. And I think you're right, too, there, John, when you say, hey, it took Joe Biden swinging things way too far to the left the last 4 years to wake a lot of people up. And if Trump had been in power the last 4 years, people wouldn't have realized how crazy it could have been. News in 2 minutes. We're back with you on some updates on a big project on the Kansas side of the state line next. Well, if you are somebody who doesn't think it's a great idea to put an amusement park at 119th and Renner, apparently you're alone. Well, at least the Olathe City Council does not agree with you. You might agree with me when you say, what a dumb idea that is. The Olathe City Council last week, and I missed it late in the week with everything going on. We had our Back the Blue tour on Friday. We were up in Kansas City at the Platte County Sheriff's Department for that, up by the airport, which was a great time. A shout out to those men and women who are just doing an outstanding job, and we appreciate them hosting us on Friday morning. But the Olathe City Council voted 6-0 to approve the first sales tax and revenue, a.k.a. Star Bond District Project Plan, for what they're calling an 18-acre ultra-accessible amusement park, a 5,000-seat multi-sport complex, and a hotel. Now, if you spend a decent amount of time in that part of town, you are right now rolling your eyes. It's already a pretty congested part of the Kansas City Metro. I know a lot of you who are in that area with regularity. I'm there quite a bit as well. And I can't think of any worse idea when it comes to congestion in that part of town than a 5,000-seat multi-sport complex, an amusement park, a shopping center, and a hotel. And apparently it's such a great idea that the thing can't stand on its own. It needs star bonds to get it done. Yes, the same star bonds that apparently the state of Kansas is willing to give to the Kansas City Chiefs or the Kansas City Royals to move across state line. What does that mean? They would basically kick back a certain amount of sales tax revenues over a certain period of time to pay off the bonds on the project. That's basically what that would mean. So the city council last week also gave the green light to establish concurrent local incentive districts that overlap with the Olathe Gateway area, 6-0 in 2 separate votes. So this is such a great idea. It's such an outstanding opportunity for somebody to invest and make a lot of money that they need star bonds and that they also need to potentially take advantage of local incentive districts. Anything else the city of Olathe can give away with our taxpayer dollars? Anything else they can have companies skimp on to build an amusement park and a 5,000-seat multi-sport complex and a shopping and medical facility and a hotel? Definitely need more of those. All 3 items passed through city council with relative ease, and public hearings for the incentives garnered little attention, with a single speaker voicing support for the project. Mayor John Bacon, who I reached out to yesterday and did not respond, was complimentary of the project, describing this sort of development in the Olathe Gateway District as long awaited. This is a vision we had for the area early on, he said. Really? You were just dreaming about having an amusement park at 119th and Renner? I suppose if you're permanently living in a clown world, you might actually think that's a good idea. But for people who like drive in the area and do business in the area and, shop in the area and want to help other small businesses in the area, I'm not convinced this is the vision that you should have had all along. Now, the application for the district came from Loretto Properties, a KC-based development firm run by Lamar Hunt Jr. and his son-in-law, James Arkell. Now, Lamar Hunt Jr.'s been on the show. He's a big supporter of veterans. I think he's a good, solid, strong, obviously, voice for the community, as the rest of his family. But listen, even smart, good people have bad ideas once in a while. Then again, if the city of Olathe is going to bend over with star bonds and local incentives, I suppose a part of me says, why not? I might do the same exact thing. If they're going to shower you with all of these incentives, why not give it a shot? What do you really have to lose? But of course, if you're a resident, it's a totally different ballgame. 913-408-7957. So I wanted to update you on that because I know it came up a few weeks ago when this idea first came to fruition, and then it was quiet for a little bit. The city of Olathe had voted to keep the conversation going, but now they're moving forward with this project. It's not a done deal necessarily, but there were 2 votes, 6-0 last week at the city council meeting, and they're going ahead with potentially star bonds and then also local incentives on top of it. So do with this information what you want, but I think it's an awful idea, John, on so many levels.
Don't they know the Royals are looking?
Yeah. Don't they know? Well, here's the thing. Mm-hmm. We're going to have an amusement park at 119th and Renner. Mm-hmm. We'll have the ball yard at 117th and Knoll.
Yeah.
So everything's going to go great.
Yeah, right.
We're right within a few miles of each other. Johnson County is going to be the hub, man. This is going to be awesome.
Access.
Yeah.
I know, but we could add a lane and charge a toll.
Oh, maybe that. Oh, that's right. Can 119th become a toll road too when they get done with the 69 highway project?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
we could go there.
I think that's a good idea. Oh gosh, there is that empty Red Lobster now over on 119th and Strangline. Maybe someone can take that over since they're going to put a big amusement park down the street.
Clearly, all this makes as much sense as the initial proposal, right?
My gosh, I don't get it. I really don't, and I can't even blame the people who are thinking of these ideas. The blame has to go on the city council. And Olathe has some people who are supposedly conservative and Republican on the city council, and even they can't get enough of this. They can't get enough of, sitting there and using incentives to build projects that probably nobody would build unless they were incentivized to build it. It's weird. It's like it's not even along party lines anymore, where Republicans are against this stuff and Democrats are for it, Republicans against it, or vice versa. It's more just about, are you part of the everyday working man, working woman, I guess you would say, demographic in Johnson County or Kansas City? Or are you part of this more upper echelon, crosses political ideologies and group of people that really want to see these projects continue to take place? I mean, I'm all for growth, right? But at what cost? At what cost to the taxpayer? And don't give me the whole nonsense of star bonds don't cost you any money. Come on. You guys know how to gerrymander these lines, try to make sure they work, even though time and time again, they also have failed. They have in Kansas. In fact, some of the local projects have failed more often than they haven't. So do with that information what you want. Unbelievable. There was long a hope that the Democratic Party in the state of Kansas could have a big win coming up in 2026. And I don't mean the governor's race. I mean in a U.S. Senate race by beating Roger Marshall. And their hope was reliant on something that was always a long shot. And that long shot was that Laura Kelly, the current governor, would want to seek higher office after she is done as governor of the state of Kansas coming up in 2 years, and would want to go to Washington, D.C. And if nothing else, she could beat Roger Marshall. She's won twice statewide, and she could be a Democratic U.S. Senator from the state of Kansas, which the state has not had in going on 100 years. Well, Laura Kelly confirmed in the last couple of days to National Panhandler Radio, that would be NPR, that she's not doing that. She says it's time for me to move on and let others come up and serve. Now, this is always what I expected the answer to be. Laura Kelly is 74 years old. She will be 76 in 2026. And while in Washington, D.C., we call that a spring chicken, Laura Kelly never seemed like the kind of person who was really a fit for Washington, D.C., or want to do that and start that venture. And even if she served one term, she would do it from, 76 until she's 82, 83 years old? Laura Kelly never seemed, and I say this as actually a compliment, she never seemed like the kind of person that would want to really do that and spend what some would argue would be the last best years. Not that, you can't have a great life after 80, but let's be honest, after 80, you're playing with house money, right? I don't think that's an unreasonable statement to make. That she would want to spend those years flying back and forth to Washington, D.C. to spend time in the U.S. Senate. So Laura Kelly has confirmed that her political career will end in 2 years, at least when it comes to seeking any higher office. So that is a big win for Roger Marshall. Not that I really thought he was ever going to be in some kind of immediate danger, but if there was ever a person that might give him a run for his money on the Democratic side of the aisle, it could have been Laura Kelly. That we now know is not going to happen, which means I don't see who that person would possibly be that could really challenge Roger Marshall. But we'll save that conversation for next year because it will be picking up steam at some point. But we know it's not going to be Laura Kelly. Meantime, speaking of people seeking higher office, this just dropped this morning. Politico.com writing, Kamala Harris telling her advisors and allies to keep her political options open. They write, Kamala Harris has been laying low since her defeat in the presidential race, unwinding with family and senior aides in Hawaii before heading back to the nation's capital. Must be nice. Must be nice. Hang out in Hawaii, have a good time. Although you got to hang out with old effeminate Doug there. That doesn't sound like all that good of a time. She's not there with Tim Walz, is she? She left him in Minnesota, I hope. I can't imagine she's talked to Tim Walz since November 5th. Tim Walz with his big leg kicks and his happy fingers as he's waving to the crowd. Gosh, that'll go down as one of the all-time. That is like, if you compare that to the worst NFL draft picks of all time, that's like the Jamarcus Russell of NFL draft picks is what that is. When the Raiders picked that, guy with a huge arm from LSU, he could throw the ball like 85 yards, and Al Davis was like, oh my gosh, this is the greatest thing I've ever seen. He had an IQ of 7 and was a total meathead, and he was out of the league after a few years. Tim Walz is the Jamarcus Russell of our political picks if we compare it to the NFL draft. That's how bad of a choice this guy was. I need macho men on my side. What do I do? Who do I pick? Tim Walz said nobody ever. Just ask a regular dude what they would have thought of Tim Walz, and you could have had your answer in about 5 minutes. But anyway, she's on vacation in Hawaii, and she is keeping her options open. Privately, writes Politico, the VP has been instructing advisors and allies to keep her options open, whether for a possible 2028 presidential run or even to run for governor in her home state of California in 2 years. As Harris has repeated in phone calls, I am staying in the fight. So I don't know who needs to break this news to Kamala Harris, but here's the thing about Kamala Harris. If she had run a primary over the summer, a 30-day primary against anybody competent in her own party, she would have lost. They didn't have a primary. They could have done a 30-day sprint to the DNC over the summer after Biden dropped out, but they didn't do it. If Kamala Harris would have run in an open primary in 4 years, she will not be the nominee. The Democratic voters will not vote for her. Now, they did because they had no choice this time around. There was no option. But if Kamala Harris's takeaway is, well, I was on the verge of being president, I might as well try it again, that is the total wrong message for Kamala Harris to take out of what happened over the last 90 days. What really happened over the last 90 days is Biden was forced out, and he stuck it to his own party by endorsing Kamala when he dropped out, which was a way to stick it to them and a way to say to them, you're stuck with her. And then despite having all the media on her side, despite having $1 billion+ to spend, all the money in the world, all the media support in the world, not doing interviews for the first month and a half, and nobody better than Oprah, Taylor Swift, Beyonce, all of those things were stacked in her favor. No primary to worry about, nobody inside the party fighting her, everyone pretending like they just wanted so desperately to have Kamala Harris as the next commander-in-chief. Despite all of that, she failed. If her internal takeaway is to say, I was so close, the right takeaway for Kamala Harris, if she's being honest with herself, and I know that's difficult for politicians to do, but if she is being honest with herself, the takeaway needs to be this. The deck could not have been more stacked in my favor, and I still lost. I lost every swing state. I lost the popular vote as a Democrat for the first time in 20 years. I got smoked in key demographics. Every demographic shifted towards Donald Trump from 40 years ago, except for college-educated women and those making over $100,000. Every other demographic, white, black, Hispanic, Asian, Jew, shifted to the right. And if you look at that data and you say, it's time for another one, man, you also might think Tim Walz was a good VP pick. Woof.
He's a cuckoo bird.
728. Happy Monday. It's great to be here on KCMO Talk Radio. Coming up, we got the good, the bad, and the ugly at the end of the hour. We'll get to our buddy Nick Haynes of Kansas City, PBS, at 8:35 today. But next, we've got some polling on where this cabinet is shaping up. And you don't want to miss it right after the news on KCMO.
Polling also finds many of the president-elect's well-known designees have more support than opposition, including Robert F. Kennedy Jr., Tulsi Gabbard, and Pete Hegseth.
Whoa! How about that? Who saw that coming? That is from CBS News. A new poll that they put out yesterday shows that Donald Trump's cabinet secretary picks are more popular than they are not popular. They all have net positives among the American people. Now, that is certainly not what has been reported over the last several days, couple of weeks, give or take. But this is the first polling done that I've seen like this. And it was done by CBS News and YouGov. And whether it's Marco Rubio, RFK, Tulsi Gabbard, Pete Hegseth, all of them are above water with the American people when asked if it was a good choice, not a good choice, or they haven't heard enough. Example, Pete Hegseth, good choice, 33%. Not a good choice, 28%. Haven't heard enough, 39%. So there's a lot of people who I understand don't know who Pete Hegseth is, don't know whether or not he's a good choice. By the way, he's been the morning anchor on the Fox and Friends weekend show for the last several years. If you're a Fox News viewer, you've seen him several times. But there's plenty of people who obviously aren't watching that who don't know anything about him. But all of those individuals I just named were given good choice marks over not good choice marks by the American people. But if you watch anything on television that is more mainstream legacy media, you would think that the majority of the American people think it's an awful choice. And that's just not true. That's not what the polling clearly shows. So you also had this pick come down over the weekend. Scott Bessent is going to be Donald Trump's U.S. Treasury Secretary. And we've got some audio from our buddy Charlie Gasparino of Fox Business Network. Here's what Charlie said over the weekend on Fox News. This was a pick that Trump was taking a while on, his Treasury Secretary. He had a lot of good options. We actually talked to Charlie of Fox News last week about this. But here's what he said over the weekend after the pick came down against Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent.
And I will tell you, if you believe in the MAGA agenda, Scott Bessent is the best guy for that. He not only has the ear of Wall Street, he believes in Trump's policies as an economic nationalism as they relate to trade, using tariffs as a tool to craft strong policies or to craft better agreements with other countries. He's for low taxes, less regulation. He's a damn smart guy. I'm telling you, this is a great choice. The markets will react, my belief, very positively.
That was Charlie Gasparino yesterday after this Treasury pick came down from Donald Trump. Now, what's interesting about Scott Bessent is that, well, I mean, this isn't really the most interesting thing about him, but what's interesting is how the media covers him. So if he is approved as the Treasury Secretary, and there's no reason to believe that he won't be, he will become the first gay Treasury Secretary in United States history. Now, I don't care about that. You probably don't care about that. But the reason I find it interesting is that I was reading this article about him over the weekend on CBS News. And the headline is, Who is Scott Bessent? What you need to know about Trump's Treasury Secretary pick. And I don't care that the guy's gay. I really don't. But you would think that an outlet like CBS News would mention that somewhere in their several hundred-word piece, especially with the headline, Who is he? I mean, these are media outlets that love dividing people based on their race, their sexual orientation, their gender. That's what they love to do. I mean, they live for that stuff, right? We've got the first openly trans, multiracial, blah, 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 pick in U.S. history. I mean, they love screaming those headlines across the TV.
Rachel Levine, Pete Buttigieg, Karine Jean-Pierre.
The list goes on and on and on, right? There is not one mention in this CBS piece about Scott Bessent being gay. Once again, I don't care. But I Googled just to see, how CBS covered this with Pete Buttigieg, who, of course, was the first gay transportation secretary under Joe Biden. And I specifically looked for CBS articles. So I was comparing media outlet to media outlet. And I found multiple stories from CBS. Here's one from February of 2021. Senate confirms Buttigieg as transportation secretary in bipartisan vote. And literally, his sexual orientation is mentioned in the first couple of paragraphs. This other story from CBS News, December 16th of 2020, praising cabinet as one of firsts, Biden announces Pete Buttigieg as picked to lead transportation department. And the whole story is about how he happens to be and was poised to be the first openly gay Senate-approved member of the cabinet. So, and then I look at the same news outlet, CBS, which writes this headline, Who is Scott Bessent? What you need to know about Trump's Treasury Secretary pick. Not one word about the guy's sexual orientation. I just find that interesting how this stuff doesn't matter if you have an R next to your name, but it does matter deeply when you have a D next to your name. Why do you think that is? because they want to make it like they are the party of first this, first that. They're the only ones who can break glass ceilings. That's it. And when their people get into certain positions, it's all about how they're the first fill in the blank. When the shoe's on the other foot, it doesn't matter. It's totally irrelevant. 913-4087-957. But you know what I care about with any pick, especially this guy, Scott Bessent, for Treasury Secretary, is what Charlie Gasparino was just saying. He's going to do a good job. He'll be a free market guy. The markets are going to like him. He does believe in Trump's use of tariffs as really a negotiating tactic. And you know what? I'm willing to give it a shot. So let's go. Paul's in Kansas City. What's up, Paul? You're on KCMO.
Hey, Pete, you're exactly right. And Senator Smith's exactly right. I want to give you an example. The Secretary of Defense, Lloyd Austin, right now, arguably, in my opinion, one of the worst sec deaths we've ever had. He gave up Bagram Airfield. Abbey Gate was a disaster. He went AWOL for Johnson County Democrats. That's absent without leave. Then he didn't tell the president, tried a conspiracy to cover it up. The Gaza $300 million pier. Recruiting's been down all his tenure. They failed on it. So contrast that with the current cabinet, who nobody's been fired from Buttigieg, but the SecDef has been a disaster, and that's what they need to do. Keep contrasting what's currently in place with what's incoming.
I like that, Paul. I mean, the fact that nobody lost their jobs after the disastrous withdrawal in Afghanistan that killed, several American soldiers is just one of the great embarrassments in modern American foreign policy history.
Exactly.
And I think Buttigieg, what did they build? 7 electric vehicle charging stations with $8 billion. I think they only reached 8 EV stations with their $7 or $8 billion they were going to have to build.
And Granholm at Energy, she was a disaster. She had no idea what energy was, the governor of Michigan.
Yep.
Terrible energy secretary. So, yeah, I'm happy with what he's doing, but contrast those with what's inbound and what's currently in place, and you'll have no problem.
Yep. Thank you very much there, Paul. Mike in Olathe. What's up, Mike? You're on KCMO.
Hey, yeah, dude, you're talking about first and everything. The other thing is they always want to talk about the type of person and what their sexuality is before they hire them. We hire the people. Now what's come back is we're hiring competence. Oh, by the way, he's gay. But this is one of their voting blocks. These are theirs. They feel like they possess certain parts of the population. We own them. If they wander off and they normalize Republicans as accepting of you, well, that violates every bit of their narrative.
That's a great point. Very well said there, Mike. Thank you very much. 913-4087-957. That is our text line as well on a Thanksgiving week, Monday morning on KCMO. Get damn good people in there. Make sure they're competent. Make sure they're up for the job. Make sure they align with, what the president's vision is for the country based on the election that he just won. And if there happens to be a first in there, that's cool. Whatever. But you don't plan the first and then hope they're competent on the back end, because we saw how that worked out the last 4 years. And the answer, not good. Not good at all. Oh, man. Whew. Gosh, unbelievable. The good, the bad, and the ugly from the weekend we'll get to coming up on 95.7 FM KCMO. New show that is debuting on Paramount Plus called Landman. Has gotten a lot of attention on social media. I have not watched it yet. It just premiered on November 17th. It's written by and created by Taylor Sheridan of Yellowstone fame. And it's, I guess, similar to Yellowstone in the sense that it is kind of a similar mindset, I guess you would say. It's set within the worlds of the oil rigs in West Texas. And it's all about, roughnecks and billionaire oil tycoons and a boom that's, obviously shaping that part of the world, but also the economy and geopolitics at large. That's, I guess, the brief synopsis of Landman. Haven't watched it yet, but I've seen a bunch of clips that have gone viral here just over the last 2 weeks. I guess they're probably 2 or 3 episodes into the show. Billy Bob Thornton's in it. He's the main character. Tommy Norris, he's a landman at an oil company. So you've got some pretty big names in this as well. I think I saw John Hamm was in it too, Demi Moore. So they've got, Taylor Sheridan's getting some big people into some of these shows he's doing. I've only watched Yellowstone. They just re-kicked off the, second half of season 5, which has been all right so far. Not great. But anyway, Landman. Let's play this clip from their most recent episode. And it's Billy Bob Thornton walking into a field and looking up at the dopey wind turbines. And he's talking to this, what appears to be young, wide-eyed, woke lady about how these wind turbines are not all they're hyped up to be. Now, Mark, let me ask you before we play the clip, did you bleep everything out that needed to be bleeped out?
I listened to it 4 times, and I believe I got it all.
All right. Well, 4 times is pretty good. You listen to it 4 times, and you think you got out all the curse words. Okay. All right. Well, if not, we'll just blame John, I suppose. No, I'm kidding. Mark was in charge of editing this clip, so here we go. Billy Bob Thornton, Landman.
Have any idea how much diesel they have to burn to mix that much concrete or make that steel and haul this out here and put it together with a 450-foot crane? You want to guess how much oil it takes to lubricate that thing or winterize it? And its 20-year lifespan, it won't offset the carbon footprint of making it. And don't get me started on solar panels and the lithium in your Tesla battery. And never mind the fact that if the whole world decided to go electric tomorrow, we don't have the transmission lines to get the electricity to the cities. It'd take 30 years if we started tomorrow. And unfortunately for your grandkids, we have a 120-year petroleum-based infrastructure. Our whole lives depend on it. And hell, it's in everything. That road we came in on, the wheels on every car ever made, including yours, it's in tennis rackets and lipstick and refrigerators and antihistamines, pretty much anything plastic, your cell phone case, artificial heart valves, any kind of clothing that's not made with animal or plant fibers, soap, hand lotion, garbage bags, fishing boats, you name it. Every thing. And you know what the kicker is? We're going to run out of it before we find its replacement.
It's the thing that's going to kill us all. As a species.
No, the thing that's going to kill us all is running out before we find an alternative. And believe me, if Exxon thought them things right there were the future, they'd be putting them all over the goddamn place. Getting oil out of the ground is the most dangerous job in the world. We don't do it because we like it. We do it because we run out of options. And you're out here trying to find something to blame for the danger besides your boss. There ain't nobody to blame but the demand that we keep pumping it.
There you go. That clip from the new show on Paramount Plus, Landman. And a lot of you are texting in saying that the show's been great. Like I said, I haven't watched it yet, but that clip went viral on social media last night. And I thought it was a great clip to highlight the scam that has become green energy at large, but especially these wind turbines. I lived in Western Oklahoma, which is a big oil part of the country, in about 15 years ago, 2011 and 2013. And that is when the wind turbines started to become a thing. All of a sudden, these massive 18-wheelers dragging these things across town would start showing up. And they started showing up with more regularity during my time there as they started putting up these wind turbines all over the place. And, I mean, aside from the fact that they're highly controversial amongst landowners, a lot of people feel like they can't turn down the money that they're being offered to put these things up on their property. But then you get into, as he noted there in the clip, the amount of money that it costs and the amount of carbon that is burnt to keep these things running, to get them from point A to point B. The birds that get killed. I mean, Donald Trump once got mocked when he talked about the birds getting killed by these wind turbines. But it's true. The same people who don't want to drill oil because of a gopher are suddenly like, yeah, put up the wind turbines. So the birds are getting killed. I don't care. I'm saving the gophers. Like the same people that don't want to build the Keystone Pipeline because of some rat that resides in South Dakota don't even think twice about what wind turbines do to birds. And the fact that they are wildly inefficient as well. And as our buddy Mike Thompson, Kansas State Senator out of Shawnee, former meteorologist, has talked about extensively on this show and elsewhere, they only work when the wind works. And guess what? God's in control of the wind. You're not. We're not. Doesn't sound very reliant, does it? But that has not stopped, whether it's wind turbines, to a lesser extent, solar panels, from being this great way that we are all going to save the planet, one turbine at a time. And also the fact is we don't have the electrical grid to get the energy from these wind turbines to many or most major American cities to begin with. These are vanity projects. And they're vanity projects that I hope that as time goes on, in the next couple of years, Donald Trump puts an end to, at least when it comes to the federal government subsidizing these things. If these companies want to invest in it because they think it's such a great return, please be my guest. But when it comes to our tax dollars, getting involved in that business to make people feel good about themselves and make it feel like they're saving the planet one turbine at a time, those days should be long gone.